All right, peace. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, give honor and praise to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. Give a double honor to 7130 South Chicago that taught me this truth. Give a double honor to all the brothers and sisters that the Creator has awoken in these last days. With that being said, peace and shalom. All right, brothers and sisters, I want to go into a discussion today. I want to be talking about some news that I watch, throughout the week, things of this nature. And I was listening to a guy named, I think his name is John Mearsheimer, if I'm pronouncing it right. And the title of it is Trump Ends NATO as Ukraine Falls. It says Russia wins Europe in total chaos. And see, a lot of people don't really understand what's going on. But what's happening is this is basically the judgment of the Creator. Because a lot of these nations that was at one point, they was kind of together. Because NATO was basically formed because I believe that they were fighting against Germany. But another reason why it was formed is because, a lot of them, they were at odds with each other, So NATO is basically all the allies, the Europeans that are allied with each other. And a lot of them are basically, against, Russia. And the guy was talking about how he felt like that Trump, basically when he got elected into office, he's basically, sowing seeds of destruction towards these other countries. And I think that, a lot of them don't know, but because they don't really have, outside looking in, is that this is really the judgment of the so-called white man. Is because what he has done throughout the time of him being in power, he has ran around the country and he has pillaged the country, different nations and things of this nature. I was sitting back listening to a female, I think she's Spanish, and she was talking about how she interviews the cartels and stuff like that. And she talks about how ruthless the cartels are, and how they, how they smuggle drugs into the U.S. and they use U.S. citizens, not just their own people, but U.S. citizens are being used to bring in these drugs. I remember I was watching this documentary called The Cocaine Cowboys, and it showed how Caucasians was bringing in drugs from these different South American countries. And see, a lot of those drugs was used to be funneled into our neighborhoods. Just like the United States had a war against these different South American countries, right? They raised the same war against our people. See, in terms of putting them on drugs and things of this nature, introducing us to a different lifestyle that a lot of us wasn't really too much privy of, And it devastated the black community. So it was very interesting on how the woman was talking about how bloody these cartel members are and how they use use their own people to funnel drugs and stuff like this, but this is the same thing that they were doing. And a lot of times they don't want to admit that they too are fighting the so-called war on drugs is to control, the cocaine market and things of this nature. So when we looking at these countries going against each other, the world don't even really understand, the masses, they don't understand that we're already in World War III. Because what's happening is you have NATO is breaking up, right? And you have a lot of these countries, they are starting to align themselves with each other. I was looking at I gotta look at that documentary again, but it was a documentary on World War One. I'm gonna post it one time, but it was a very interesting documentary. It was very good, and it showed how many people died and how many people were actually fighting in the war. Over 42 million people died in World War One. See, and I think it was like 20 or 30 million or something like that injured during that war. It was very bloody. And what's finna happen is these countries, they're about to go to war, but it's going to be a different war. They're going to be warring in what we would call outer space, because a lot of these satellites that they're using out of space, these are um, these are cameras that is basically watching other countries and things of this nature. So they already are geared for war. And you have a lot of people that have satellites, China, Russia, the United States. I'm talking about the big boys. They all have satellites watching each other, you know, ready to use their nuclear bombs if needed, right? And he talks about how Ukraine has basically lost the war because the United States used Ukraine to be able to go over and try to establish military bases on the borders of Russia, and they failed miserably, right? And now they have to tuck tail and turn face, and now they want to abandon Zelensky. They really want him to be captured by Russia and to be assassinated because he didn't carry out the bidding, right, to try to establish a military front in Ukraine. See, he lost that. So now they got to tuck tail and turn face. But the first scripture that I want to go to, I want to look at the book of Second Ezra's. One second. The book of Second Ezra's. One second. The book of Second Ezra 15 and 16. It says, "For there shall be sedition amongst men." And that's what we're looking at. We're looking at a lot of chaos and confusion, hatred, strife, and wars amongst the Europeans. It's because really they're all brothers and sisters and cousins. See, this is a family. This is a family squabble, right? That is basically going to get ugly, right? So it says, "For there should be sedition amongst men." And it's not just against the Europeans. The whole world is in chaos. Because believe it or not, brothers and sisters, America is going to be in a state of war, meaning that they're going to be warring against other countries and they're going to be warring against each other. This is why you see a lot of chaos that's happening with the citizens of the country, like the Proud Boys, and now you see people like the neo Nazis. With the Proud Boys are nothing but Ku Klux Klan members, but now we seeing the quote unquote black Democrats fighting against the black Republicans and all the white Republicans and the white Democrats. See, this is the chaos and confusion that we looking at, right? Because before a system, before a country falls, the creator has to break them up from within, right? So the scripture says, "For there should be a sedition amongst men, and invading one another." That's why you see, and what do we see today? We're seeing the United States and NATO trying to invade the borders of Russia, right? And now you see a bunch of back and forth. You hear about the United States talking about invading Mexico and Canada. And why are they trying to invade Mexico and Canada? They're trying to do this because they trying to absorb these countries into their military. Because if we do an estimate, right, let's look at an estimate. Let's look at how many soldiers do United States have? How many soldiers do United States have? Now let's look at this. It says as of June 2014, it says the United States military had over 443,000 active duty soldiers, 598,000 reserves, right? So when we looking at this number, that is a low number of soldiers. So let's look at Canada. It says Canada has, as of January 31st, 2024, Canada military has 63,500 regular force members, 22,500 reserve members. This is about 15,500 fewer than authorized strength, right? So this is just my opinion on why they want Canada to be a part of the United States is because there's an old saying in the movie called The X-Men. When you had Magneto and they was fighting against the X-Men. And Magneto is considered basically the muscle. You had like the muscle that was a part of Magneto's group, and then you had the pawns. You had the people that was basically boots on the ground. So the first thing that he said was, let the pawns go first. Is because the pawns are basically expendable. Like when you play chess, you got pawns on the chessboard, right? But the queen, the king, the bishop, and all the other characters, they're positioned in certain positions for a reason, right? So why am I saying this? I'm saying this before they start to actually use nuclear weapons, they're gonna be fighting boots on the ground. See, and America got I think 440 some thousand soldiers. They don't have a lot of people in their military. So if you gather 63,500, 22,500, you put them together with the United States government, that's more people, right? Then let's look at this. How many soldiers do Mexico has? Mexico have 286,000, right? So to me, they need to take control of these areas is because if they don't take control of these areas, these nations are projected to join themselves or ally themselves with China and Russia. So let's take a look at that. If they allied themselves with China and Russia, then what? China and Russia is going to be very tough to beat. And I'm going to hit you with something. Some of these European, because they all Europeans, majority of them, talking about the big boys, some of these countries from the U.S. is going to align themselves with Russia if they don't be taken down by the United States, right? So this is why I'm saying that this is one of the reasons that I believe that Trump is not basically, we may not be into any wars under his presidency, but what he's doing is he's setting the stage for potential wars against neighboring countries and father countries. This is why he's put in office, because he's put in office to basically try to re-strengthen America how she once was. This is why he was elected to become president, because they need somebody in office that's a dog. See, and see, Trump fit the bill. This is why he was selected to become president, so that he can set the stage for these upcoming wars. So when we looking at this, we're looking at the creator strategically using these nations to basically go to war against each other. Let's look at this. Nahum 3:1. It says, "Woe to the bloody city! It is full of lies and robbery, and prey departeth not." And see, this is what the country represents. See, the country represents what? Bloodshed. Is because this is how they gathered the country. They came over here. Everybody knows this story. They came over here doing, I think the first aspect of the Renaissance was during the 1400s. They came over here and they slaughtered the indigenous people under what you would call white supremacy and religion, Christianity. This is how they took over a lot of stuff. She's the one in the 13th chapter. Let's look at this. Revelation 13, I think it's 11. It says, "And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon." And who is that? Who is that? What we talking about, brothers and sisters? We're talking about America. It's because America came up, right, We talking about the Europeans, the pilgrims, the Christians. They came up out of the Roman Empire, brothers and sisters. And when they came up out of the Roman Empire, they was doing what? They was pushing Christianity, telling the world that they were the anointed ones of the Creator, trying to push what they would call peace and harmony amongst humans and things of this nature. But in actuality, they was what? They was the beast. It's because they slaughtered the Native Americans. They went to war against them, took over the land, right? And they have been doing this same thing all over the country, brothers and sisters. This is why the Creator is judging the nations. And it's not just America. All these European countries, they have done this. When we look at Russia, when we look at all these countries, they all are guilty of doing this. Let's look at some brief history real quick. One second. The Berlin Conference, right? It says the Berlin Conference of the 1884-85 was a meeting of colonial powers that concluded with the signing of the General Act of Berlin, an agreement regulating European colonization and trade in Africa during the new imperialism period. The Conference of the 14 countries was organized by Otto von Bismarck, the first Chancellor of Germany, at the request of Leopold II of Belgium. It says it met on the 15th of November 1884, and after an adjournment concluded on 26 February 1885 with the signing of the General Act. So what is taking place during the 1800s? They was doing what? This is the whole concept of them coming over to Africa, controlling the natural resources. And this is what they've been doing ever since. But this ain't just starting in the 1800s. It goes back to the time when they first started what you would call the Renaissance period during the 1400s, where they was going around. This is when they was first introduced by the Creator the concept of creating ships and discovering new lands and things of this nature. So when they came over here to America, when they started to come to Africa and all over, they started to do what? Pillage other countries, the native indigenous people of these countries. So when we looking at this, even though a lot of these people are starting to speak out against the atrocities of America and how they have manipulated the minds of the people and stuff like that, a lot of these people are going to be judged in this upcoming war that's already taking place, brothers and sisters. So I hope you got something out of the message. Peace. Shalom.